Right now on Sports Extra, all eyes will be on the Falcons tomorrow night for Monday Night Football. We are getting you completely ready for Falcons versus Eagles with an assist from a Falcons legend and someone who knows the Eagles very, very well. Meanwhile, in the college game, the Georgia Bulldogs remain undefeated but dropped from the top spot in the polls after an interesting performance out in Kentucky. What did we learn about the Dogs this weekend? And oh, by the way, just 2 weeks ago, the Braves are fighting it out with the Mets for the final wildcard spot. And Atlanta has looked pretty great so far in the Dodgers series. Keep the Braves, keep their postseason alive. It's a jam-packed episode. You don't want to miss it. Sports Extra with my friends starts right now. Welcome into Sports Extra, everybody. I'm Reggie Chatman. This is the first NFL Sunday in a while that the Falcons aren't playing. We are getting you completely ready for Monday Night Football, so let's jump right into it and allow me to direct your attention to this. For the first time in 4 years, the Dirty Birds will be on Monday Night Football. It's the first of at least 4 primetime games for the Falcons this season. And Falcons fans definitely want to see a different product on the field from what they saw last week. Kirk Cousins says he's healthy. The Eagles will be without their top receiver, and the lights certainly will be bright tomorrow night.
I think that's exciting for the team and the overall dynamic of it all. You know, I think the actual team, the guys that actually go out there and play, I think it doesn't matter where it's got to be, whether it's a Thursday night game, a Monday night game, a Sunday night game, or just a Sunday game. They all are the same for us, but it's definitely more exciting because you're the only show under the lights, and that's always cool for the overall team and everybody that's a part of that.
Boy, a big week, huh? Wow. We got some big guests in the building as well. Sarah Spence from AJC, Joe Patrick, 92.9 The Game in the building. We got to talk about Kirk Cousins. Struggled in week 1, Joe. Where are you kind of on the panic meter? Should fans be panicking? Because that's what it looks like on Twitter.
I think it's fair to be panicking mildly at this point in time. You know, just because of the real situation with Kirk Cousins is that the guy had Achilles surgery 9 months ago. That is a real thing. Now, can he play coming off of that? I think he can. I don't think that this game is necessarily means that he cannot, function as this team's quarterback. I think they are trying to set some things up for him in terms of running him out of pistol and shotgun so he doesn't have to move around as much. But in order for that to be effective, you're going to have to get the kind of scheme that's going to complement that well. And Zach Robinson, I think, just fell short in that respect in this opening game against the Steelers. It's a really tough defense to go against, but ultimately I just think too many Falcons players were kind of left out to dry. Not just Kirk Cousins, but when you look at a guy like Caleb McGarry at right tackle, the wide receivers weren't getting the production that I think the team needs from them to be successful. So those are some of the things that have to get straightened out for this team to be
You mentioned
successful.
Zach Robinson, their offensive coordinator. That first game, a lot of conversation about how they didn't really do any play action. Kirk wasn't asked to move around a whole lot. Sarah, where do you think Zach needs to make adjustments heading into week 2?
Yeah, I love the mildly panicking. That's like words don't really go together. But I do think that that's kind of fair after week 1 and just how Kirk Cousins didn't seem to look super comfortable. I don't necessarily think it's about health. Maybe it's just about getting in a rhythm with the offense. In terms of play calling, for sure, you'd like to see more play action. I also just think overall with this offense, you don't want to get too predictable. And I do think the Falcons at times slid into that predictability. And if you're going to have a chance against the Eagles, I think you need to avoid that.
Well, one thing that we can expect predictably is that the ball is going to go into the hands of Bijan Robinson. 23 touches last week, Joe. Is he a guy that should be getting that many touches? Should they be spreading it around or maybe a little bit more?
It doesn't seem totally sustainable for him to get like over 50% of the team's touches from game to game. And now fantasy football managers will love this because this is the whole issue that they had with Arthur Smith last year is that he wasn't getting the ball enough. Ultimately in this game, it's not like the total touches were up very high, but the team only ran 50 offensive plays and he was involved in a lot of them. He had 16 or 18 carries, plus a handful of catches. That's a lot of usage for him. When the amount of plays you run ultimately goes up because you will run more than 50 plays when the offense starts to get ticking, it will be interesting to see how his usage unfolds. I expect to see more Tyler Algier as a part of this offense as the season continues.
Well, the Falcons are going up against the Eagles' rush defense that only allowed 163 yards on the ground versus the Packers. The run defense for the Falcons played pretty well, but let's talk about what the Falcons defense needs to do defensively to try and slow down that two-headed monster up front. You got Jalen Hurts, you got the other man that just joined that team in Saquon Barkley. Sarah, what's it going to do, or what's it going to take to get it done?
I think it's going to take forcing turnovers. I think that you don't want this Eagles offense and all of its weapons to be on that field for too long. I really, and it's going to be hard to avoid it. They're going to make plays. I think that's how good they are. But I think if you can force turnovers and keep them as off balance as possible, I think that's going to be key.
Look, it was a simple question, but really a difficult answer. You did a good job there, Sarah.
Oh, thank you.
Hey, I think that they'll actually have an opportunity to create some more of those turnovers in this game, as opposed to the Steelers game, where you would think with Justin Fields' career history that he would be a guy who would turn the ball over. But I think what we saw in that game was Arthur Smith just really run a really conservative call sheet in that game and really didn't expose him at all. I think Jalen Hurts is going to take more shots, especially in front of that home crowd playing their home opener that night in Philly. I think that there will be some opportunities for this Falcons defense to potentially make some plays.
Here's what we do know. The Eagles will be without wide receiver A.J. Brown, who is out with a tight hamstring. Maria Martin will be on hand tomorrow night, but nice enough to check in with us from the city of brotherly love.
The Falcons in primetime, boy, is not a sentence that we have said a whole lot of over the last couple of years. Monday night at the Link against the Eagles. The Falcons are going to play in their first primetime game since 2022 and their first Monday Night Football game since 2020. Now, the Eagles are coming off a Week 1 win in Brazil, and the Falcons, they are coming off a loss in Week 1. However, both of these teams, they have plenty to fix heading into Monday Night Football. Now, there is one guy who knows a thing or two about not just playing here in Philadelphia, but also playing in primetime games. That would be our good friend and Falcons legend, John Abraham, breaking it down with me in studio this weekend ahead of Monday Night Football. We know that Kirk Cousins, this guy, we watched him on Sunday against the Steelers. Not so great, right? He's going to have a bounce back game. Him and the offense will have to get in a much better rhythm in Philadelphia. What is going to be the key for the Falcons offense to find success against the Eagles?
Well, personally, just watching the offense, they didn't look balanced. I mean, just period blank. It didn't look like Kirk was comfortable. It didn't look like the O-line was comfortable.
Yeah.
I don't even know about the receivers or anyone. It's just the whole team didn't look like they really were ready to play. I think Zach Robinson needs to have a sit down and just go to Kirk and ask Kirk, what do you want to do? What are you comfortable with? Okay, I know I've done this in L.A., which he said in the press conference that in L.A., some of the stuff he did, he implemented here. It's not L.A., bro. It's a whole nother coast. So I think that definitely he needs to just sit down with Kirk and have a man-to-man and be like, Kirk, show me in Minnesota what you did. We need that.
How do you make Jalen Hurts uncomfortable?
First of all, you got to talk about last week. For me personally, you got to make sure he knows, okay, we're coming. If it was me personally as a defensive coordinator, I would bring 5 guys. They had 2 sacks last week.
Yep.
One was outside the pocket. We trying to keep him in the pocket. Personally, like me, I would literally try to bring somebody straight up front. I would tell the guys, stay outside. Let's keep him in the pocket because he can run, and we don't want to put those kind of yards up. They're a kind of team that can make mistakes and still win, so we got to make sure that we get him on the ground and keep him in 3rd and longs.
What's AJ going to have to do to lock down that outside?
I'm not worrying about AJ as much as I'm worrying about Simmons and Bates. I think they got to play well. They got to keep Smith and the other guy out of the way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I just feel like he's played well enough last week against Pickens. I mean, Pickens had probably like 64 yards and decent.
But you were okay with AJ's performance?
He played decent, so I'm not really worrying about AJ. I think that with the safety play, everything else will work. I mean, we got 2 all-pro safeties. Why not have those guys be the main part of the defense? Grady's going to do his thing. We love Grady. He's the face of the team. We know that. But those 2 guys got to control that whole team. If you think about last week, Pittsburgh didn't throw it through the middle of the field the whole time, and I think that had something to do with them. Not our linebackers. I love our linebackers too, but I'm just saying I really think when you think about those 2 guys in the middle of the field, you think about, oh no, we're just gonna go to outside, see if we can pick the corners off. So if they can implement that and keep Jesse and those guys can play well, it's a win.
So perhaps there's no one as hungry as Kirk Cousins to prove himself in this game on Monday night. His 3-10 record on Monday Night Football may look a little bit ugly. However, he's won 3 out of the last 4 that he's played in. And his last trip here to Philadelphia at the Link, it was a loss for the Minnesota Vikings last year. However, Kirk himself, he was really fantastic in that game. He had 4 touchdowns and no turnovers. So hopefully something a little bit similar for the Falcons on Monday Night Football. Now, you can expect a lot of adjustments to this Falcons offense heading into this game. They are ready to prove why they got multiple primetime games this year. Reggie, back to you in the studio.
All right, thanks, Maria. Let's close out this block with some predictions. Eagles versus Falcons. Joe, we'll start with you. Who do you like on Monday Night Football?
I have to go with the Eagles. I'm going to go 31-20. I do think that we feel better about this Falcons offense coming out of the game, but I just feel like going on the road for the first time in the season on Monday Night Football, potential for some turnovers and some rough play.
Sarah, how about you?
I'm going to go 27-20, similar to Joe. I do feel like Kirk Cousins will look better in this game. I think the offense will look better, but I'm not quite sure they can pull it out.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm probably going to be a hero on social media because I'm the only one up here picking the Falcons. 24-21, the final. I just think that the NFL is super weird, and the margin of error is so small that somehow, some way, they'll be able to get the job done. All right, we got to talk about the Dogs. Coming up, certainly gave us a scare last night, but they pulled out a win against Kentucky. We're taking a look at why this game wound up being so close after the commercial break.
Proud of our team. I'm proud of our leadership. I honestly believe we won this game with culture. And the culture of our team never panicked. I saw more leadership tonight than I've seen all season.
Well, I'll tell you that culture has them riding a 42-game regular season win streak, but last night tougher than what many people thought it would be. Welcome back to Sports Extra. The Dogs are favored by more than 21, but won by just 1 point. Sarah, what happened to the Georgia team? They had outscored opponents 82-6 over the first 2 weeks. What happened last night?
I think a couple different things happened. First of all, I think Kentucky played an extremely physical football game. Georgia's playing on the road. I also think when you're the number one team in the country and when you have the reputation Georgia has, you're going to get everybody's best shot because it would make a season to knock off the Bulldogs. And I also just think you're going through some growing pains here. I think that this was just a shaky road game in the SEC, but I do think there's a lot that Georgia can learn from, and it's easier to do that after a win than a loss.
Absolutely. Kirby's going to find a way to really motivate those guys. Just show them the tape. It feels pretty simple.
There's a lot on the tape.
Well, look, one thing that's definitely going to motivate them, they jumped down from number 1 to number 2 in the AP poll. Joe, what do you think Kirby is going to tell those guys? Obviously, they need to clean a lot of things up, and they're going to have to do it before Alabama in a couple weeks.
Yeah, I kind of think that this is going to be a good thing for the Georgia team to not have that number 1 ranking kind of. Sometimes it can become, kind of a burden on your shoulders, especially for a team that I think has a lot to prove in terms of the players out on there on the field. Despite the fact that they've won so many games, a lot of those have come with players who have been like these really highly prestigious players that have gone on to be drafted in the NFL. Now we're seeing a lot of new blood kind of on the field there for the Georgia Bulldogs. And I think having that number 1 spot to shoot for, to strive for, I think is going to be better than them kind of holding on to it and feeling like they have to protect this and it's only going to be so long until they kind of give it up. So I think it's actually going to be a good thing, good motivational factor for Kirby Smart to use in the future.
Well, look, if they get a win over top 4 Alabama in a couple of weeks, they'll probably be back at number 1. So we'll be back in the same spot they were.
It'll sort itself out quickly.
Yeah, exactly.
Win your games.
Just win games. Georgia Tech's been winning some games recently to start this season. They got back in the win column in emphatic 59-7 win, even though it was against Virginia Military Academy. Next week on the road at ranked Louisville. Now, Sarah, the jury's kind of out on Tech right now. Got a win over Georgia State, a bad Florida State team as well. Where do you kind of land on Georgia Tech and where they are this year?
Honestly, I think it's still early for the Yellow Jackets. I do think that this win against VMI, you can think whatever you think about it. Obviously, that's a win they should get. But I think you needed to shake off the loss to Syracuse, which I wasn't expecting. I expected Georgia Tech to win that game. So I think getting over that hump and putting that behind them is so important.
Well, look, one of those wins came over Georgia State, who before now we probably was like, oh, this is just a regular win. They ended up getting a win. Georgia State did over Vanderbilt last night at home. The first big-time win for Del McGee. What do you think with what he's doing so far with that program to help build a culture at Georgia State that's looking for something?
Yeah, I mean, clearly those players play for him, and that's what we saw against Vanderbilt that night. They were fired up. He's got the students fired up, as you saw, Reggie, in the middle of the madness down there on the field. It was incredible. It's incredible to see that kind of energy in the football program, and that's what Del McGee's bringing, and it's led by good quarterback play and an exciting offensive style of football that we're seeing from this team so far this season. We saw it against Georgia Tech, and I hope to see him continue in the future.
I hope that fans saw that and start going to these games, because I really do think Center Park Stadium's a nice setup. The fact it was old Turner Field, if they could get more fans in there, I think it could be really, really fun.
Yeah.
All right, meanwhile, let's switch some gears and talk some baseball. The playoff hunt continues for the Atlanta Braves, who are still firmly in it. A lot of that thanks to Chris Sale, who continues to absolutely dominate. He got his 17th win last night, and it really really making it hard for anybody else who wants to try and win that NL Cy Young Award. It would be his first of his career. Now, I want to just get crazy for a second, right? Big picture. Does this season cement him the 8-time All-Star as a Hall of Famer, Joe?
Ooh.
Let's get wild.
I mean, 8-time All-Star?
Pretty good.
That, you know, that is the kind of Hall of Fame caliber. You know, it's funny because I hadn't even thought about it, but, you know, he probably is. And if he gets another Cy Young with another team, you know, I think that is going to honestly cement his place there eventually. And if he could have some success with the Braves as well, just as a team, that's, I think, going to go even further to, you know, put in those credentials forward for him.
He could win a triple crown. I mean, he could win a triple crown this season.
Leads in strikeouts.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, and I also think that for Chris Sale to be doing this, I don't think a lot of people expected this from Chris Sale, not because nobody's thinking Chris Sale is not fantastic, but because of his injury history. So for Sale to be a key cog in the Braves rotation that's been such a strength for them this season, and a big reason why they're still in this wild card race is huge.
And look, he was definitely a risk, and he knew that as well when he said it. When he got here, he's like, well, look, I know they took a risk on me. He's happy he's able to do it for this ball club.
You got to give so much credit to Alex Anthopoulos for being so good at some of the toughest decisions that he's had to make as a general manager in these off seasons, whether it's signing Chris Sale or getting rid of some players who have been around for a long time, Dansby Swanson, Freddie Freeman. Those are not easy moves to make, to let go of players like that, but he's been able to replace them like with players who are as good, if not performing better at certain points.
Speaking of replacements, let's go back to the playoff hunt, why don't we? Whit Merrifield back from injury after playing with a broken foot. The utility infielder was brought in to help with the other injuries, and he said this week he's willing to do whatever it takes to get the job done.
Yeah, time's running out. And I mean, frankly, I'm 35, and I don't know how many more chances I'll have to be in a playoff race. So it's important for me to do what I can on a team that's in a playoff race, because these opportunities don't come around too often. I spent most of my career playing in games in September that didn't mean much. If someone told me I can go out there and play a game in September that is important, I'm going to do everything I can to get out there.
I really enjoyed hearing that from Whit, man. The dude clearly cares. What does it say about Whit and this group that they continue to fight as much as they have, Sarah?
Oh my gosh, it says so much. It says a lot about Whit Merrifield's pain tolerance in particular.
Broken foot?
That he's out here playing with a broken foot because he has that grit, because he has that passion for the game. I think for his career, I think it means a lot to him for this team to be out doing what he's doing and playing through injury. I do think it's just so emblematic, though, of how much the injury bug has bitten this Braves team from the get-go, and it continues to, but the Braves still continue to have such a fighting chance. What does that say about how deep this group is? And to your point, Joe, how AA has kind of adjusted this team's roster as you go.
Joe, I mean, incredible, right?
Yeah, and you really need what he just expressed there, that sentiment, you have to have in a championship locker room or clubhouse. Like that is the kind of, you need that leadership. That is leadership, that is culture. That is what it is right there. And it doesn't always have to come from the most star player. It can come from guys like Whit Merrifield who are just trying to provide value in any way they can for the team. And, it's great to hear him say it.
It really sets the standard, and I'll tell you, man, if I had a broken foot, you would not see me on set right now.
So good on him. Much less not play baseball. You would not be on set.
Nope, I wouldn't be sitting here. I'd be at home. All right, meanwhile, guys, let's go off into this break here. We're behind enemy lines. We're finding out what makes the Eagles team so special as the Falcons look to pull off the upset tomorrow night. All right, week 2 of the NFL season is here, and I'm joined by my good friend and the man who covers the Philadelphia Eagles for The Athletic, Brooks Cabina, in the building. What is the feeling right now in Philadelphia as they go up against an Atlanta Falcons team that has really struggled after week 1?
I don't think anybody within the Eagles organization thinks that the Falcons are going to continue to look like that throughout the year. Kirk Cousins coming into a new offense. They're going to eventually find a groove. I think one of the things that people are zeroing in on is the tight end play with the Falcons, not just their run game. How does that match up with the defense that's still trying to figure out who they have at nickel? Who will be that matchup? When they look at that with the Falcons, those are the things that they can exploit them on defense. So that's what people are really focused on inside the building and out.
Well, here in Atlanta, the Falcons took on the Steelers at home, but at times it felt like a Steelers home game because of how loud it was. It's going to be considerably louder as they actually head on to a real road game in Philadelphia. What can the Falcons expect from that fan base?
One of the craziest fan bases in the entire country, and on a Monday night, and their first game of a season that has a lot of expectations and a lot of players that a lot of fans are interested in seeing, like Saquon Barkley for the very first time. Winning in Brazil was huge for a fan base that was entering the season questioning where the direction would go. Philly is very distinctly nervous about their teams and can react very quickly and strongly. And after a week 1 win, there's a lot of enthusiasm going into their first home game. So Monday Night Football, South Philly, it's not going to get any more crazy in the NFL.
A lot of Georgia Bulldogs on that roster, as it seems like that organization just likes to pull guys straight from Athens. What kind of impact have the UGA Dogs made on the Philadelphia Eagles?
Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, those two are being counted on becoming foundational pillars of this defense for the future. But it stretches across to players like Nakobe Dean as well, third-round pick, linebacker. He's going to have a role as a blitzer. Akili Ringo, I think, is one of the most surprising players of the offseason, the way that he performed. And he could be a person that ends up starting for them down the line. But they're all together. Nolan Smith on the edge. I mean, I could talk for 15 more minutes about these guys. These guys all come out, and these are the kind of NFL athletes that teams covet.
So much to talk about with this game, and this one is going to be a whole lot of fun. All eyes on these two teams on Monday Night Football, and Brooks Gamino will be in the building, so make sure you guys are following all this stuff on social media and on The Athletic. Brooks, thank you guys. Thank you so much for coming on with me, man.
Yeah, anytime, buddy.
All right, final block. It's our video of the weekend. What else could it possibly be? Georgia State getting a big win over Vanderbilt yesterday, and the fans stormed the field. Sarah, you reacted kind of bad
well,
there,
they
huh?
didn't look comfortable.
Oh, it's the most beautiful time of year, honestly, to see people spill out of the out of these. That is going to leave a sore tailbone tomorrow.
I just feel like that he mistimed it, underestimated. Gosh, can we stop showing
We got to keep moving it back, I guess.
This is like an injury video when you're like, do you have to play it again? It's just brutal. Maybe like adrenaline involved and he was just so excited, but
looks maybe some poor
Ouch.
footwear choices there, to like the feet slip out a little bit underneath them. I don't know.
I don't know if he even recognized that this used to be a baseball stadium. That's an outfield wall. That's not a regular wall. Just go to the stairs. They're like right next to
I
this.
feel like it's kind of like Lambeau Leap, where it's like it's actually like it's easy to. It's more than you think.
Right.
It's more than you think for the distance. You know.
Sneaky tall wall. Good luck to them. So congratulations, Georgia State, and thank you guys so much for watching our show tonight. That wraps it up for Sports Extra. Monday Night Football tomorrow. We'll have you covered on 11Alive. But guess what? Next week, Sports Extra will be live from Sunday Night Football as the Falcons host the Chiefs over Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Have a great night, everybody.